Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special evening tonight. We're getting to know Eboni Major, and this should be a fun event in the lead up to an event that we're going to be having at the ABV Barrel Shop, and we'll talk about that at the end of today's presentation. But for right now, I'd like to introduce all of you to Miss Eboni Major. Hey, Eboni, how you doing?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Tuesday evening. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, thank you so much for joining us. It's really an honor for us to have you coming to our shop and teaching this class. So that's why I'm excited to tell everybody a little bit about that. But before we get to all that, I do want to kind of get to know you a little bit. So we're going to start on the personal side. So if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Ebony, where you grew up, those type of things, anything that you would help kind of set the foundation of where you are today.
Yes, so I am currently in Birmingham, Alabama. So where I was born and raised. I lived here my entire life until I was 18, then went to college at Alabama A&M University, which is in Huntsville. So went there, studied food science, and then went to Oregon for a short period to work in food and chips and snacks. And then I wanted to get closer to my grandmother, which is in Alabama. And I found an internship online that was a whiskey blender internship on Indeed.com. So I took the shot, submitted the application, and that's kind of what started me on my journey. But I mostly spent my time in Alabama, did a couple months in Oregon, and then did about 6 years in Kentucky on the Bourbon Trail before moving back home.
Right. And I know when you're talking about blending, and you certainly can always hone your skills, you can always improve them, but there is some natural ability there as well, things that not necessarily everybody has that, to make you a great blender. Was this kind of apparent right away as you started doing this? You apply for this thing on Indeed
Yeah.
and you get it. Was it like right away? It's like, well, there may be something here.
Um, So I will say I was nervous when I took the job. There was no test before taking the job.
Right.
So they
Yeah.
had to take the chance on me to know if I was going to be able to do it or not. And as an intern, I was just learning and learning and learning. About 6 months in, I really started loving what I was doing. So that's when I was knocking down the door to get permanent. And once I was hired permanent, that's when I had to do the blending accreditation test. And I did it at about 9 months. And sometimes people wait a little bit longer. But for me, I think I was just really excited about what I was learning. So I spent a lot of my time, whatever was free time at the moment, appraising extra samples. When I was working there, we weren't making our own whiskey, so I got to learn from a lot of different places. So it just was a really good opportunity for me to really key in on those skills. I now have a nose where I can smell pretty much anything anywhere. But hey, it was a lot of training, but it is a natural ability. I've gone through like some sensory accreditation of teaching other distilleries. And then there's some people who absolutely cannot smell something. So those would not be the people that you would eventually rely on to create your sensory system. So when people think, I hate to go so nerdy so quick, but when
No, that's
people
good.
think of blending, it's not just the mattress. So a blender, a really great blender, and how I was trained was grain to glass. So we're doing everything from the quality checks, identifying how we want to build our distillation plan, what yeast we want to order. Everything is built from that blending and distilling team. And what a blender is really doing is appraising the distillate. So smelling the distillate before it goes in the barrel and grading that. And as I was working through with some of these distilleries, there were people who weren't able to pick out very important notes. So if you get a sample and it's skunky or earthy, that would be something that's a reject. So through the process of sensory analysis and how we created our own kind of accreditation test, we were able to see who could smell very well and who could taste very well and who couldn't. But yeah.
A question came in from the chat there. What sort of accreditation test is there for blending? Is there such thing? Is it like an accreditation type of test? No, it's.
I have not seen one
Mhm.
in my time. I just, like sommeliers have their tests. Blenders do not have any kind of accreditation. There hasn't been anything that has come on board, I think, that has accredited any blender.
Right. Right. Were you passionate about whiskey, or did it just seem to fit well because you were doing, like I said, some things in the world of snacks, and it was kind of adjacent to what you were doing anyway, and again, you wanted to be closer to your grandma, that type of thing?
Yeah, when I first started, it was definitely not, "Ooh, I want to be in whiskey." And I do
Right.
not
Right.
tell that to anybody. It was definitely an opportunity to be 5 hours away from my grandmother, versus being in Oregon on the other side of the world. So that was the first thing. And then when I got there, I will be honest with you, I was a little nervous when I got into whiskey. I told my mom at first I didn't think I could handle it because it was more of a lifestyle than just a job. Like, becoming a whiskey blender was not just something I could do from 9 to 5 and be great at it. It was a real lifestyle. So I think through learning that, I became more passionate because there was more research, there was more going to events, more, spending your weekends during a tour. I just think over time, my passion for it and love for it just really grew. But it was definitely not anything I had my eyes set on when,
Right.
graduating college.
So tell us a little bit about your career then. So you kind of start out this gig and kind of an open call type of thing, and
Yeah.
you land it, and but tell us how you progress through the industry.
Yeah, so my progression at Diageo, working at Bullet, was really quick, because of the position that we were in. I started my blend portfolio working on George Dickel, so those were my first brand homes, being responsible for blending Dickel 8, Dickel 12, or any barrel selections or any innovations that came through that. While we were managing contract distilleries, ensuring that distillate was up to par, while releasing Bullet single barrel. That was one of my projects that I worked on, is really being able to take what was a really complicated inventory system, from different places, and be able to offer some of those individual mash bills to consumers. I created Bullet Blender Select in 2020, which is something that I was really, really proud of, because it was an opportunity that I took a chance on myself, sent an email and said, "Hey, I have an idea to do a unique blend," and that blend did really, really, really well.
Hmm.
And that's something that I'm probably most proud of. Before leaving there, I did leave. Oh, you asked about my Diageo. Sorry, you asked about that career. I'll leave it there. But that's what I was kind of doing at
Okay.
Diageo. I did a bit of like quality work, had fun working in the bottling lines, doing all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed getting to know every side of the business. In my last 2 years, I then started to go to California, New York, Florida, anywhere the brand really needed me to go teach people about blending. And in 2018, I first created, which is what I'm going to be coming to do with you guys. I first created what I call the blending class, because most often people would ask me, "What do you do for a living?" And I'm like, "I smell and taste whiskey," because that's the easy answer. It's the
Right.
quick answer. But I wanted to give people an opportunity to learn what I do, and what that is in kind of like an hour. So I started to travel for the company, going out and teaching a version of a bullet class where they got to create their own liquid. So
Right.
my career was production, marketing. It was kind of all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to get into some of those because I mean, you're modest. I'm gonna throw them out there because I know things that you've done in your career because you and I have talked before, and I want to make sure that the audience understands that as well. Single barrel program, you kind of got that going. So tell us a little bit about that and what that was like, and tell us a little bit about what the work that you did to make that happen.
Yeah, I think now that I'm out, I can be a little bit more open about how impactful that process was, because as we know, Bullet was not producing their own liquid.
Hmm.
So being able to offer a single barrel program felt a bit like taboo. Like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna offer this? Where is the inventory gonna come from? Is everybody gonna assume it's for roses? Yes, they are. So I
Right.
intentionally did not put any of that in the first selection. So I can tell you now there was no
Uh-huh.
sorry, hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that. Hopefully they don't come after me. But so it was going through the process of smelling, tasting barrels, understanding what didn't fit within the current bullet formula. Whatever didn't fit within that current bullet formula, we were able to put it up against others and allow consumers to come in and taste and smell. Well, not consumer, customers, accounts to come in. We built a speakeasy at the bottom of the new Shelbyville Visitor Center where
Yep.
the individual barrels were there. I don't know if the liquid is able to come out of the wall yet, but that was one of the things that we were working on. So that was a really challenging project for me. And I've never really talked about it, but even on the internal side, that was my first project that I attempted to be the project manager of. I was again bored and went to the innovation team and said, hey, you're short staffed right now. I'll, take a jab at being the commercialization person and the blender. I eventually had to walk away from that commercialization piece and just focus on the liquid because I was just a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but someone else was able to come in and take it on and help us get it launched. But that was a really good learning opportunity for me. Yeah.
Another thing too that may be impactful for even some of the people that are here on this call today, in the fact that you helped the visitors experience at that Shelbyville location, right? So
Yes.
that's important to note too, because someone may have taken a tour and don't realize you had a hand in that. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I'm trying to see, I can't remember when it was, but as the visitor center started to get open, I felt like I had some free time on my hands. So I agreed to work 2 days out of the week. I will walk up there, work at the visitor center, go on tours with one of the current managers, and we would just take random tours and see what it is that we could improve. But before this, I had worked with the innovation team to create the sensory experience. So we went through a list of aromas and essential oils and really, really worked hard to see which one of those, if you've gone through the tour, when you go through the tastings, there's the lights, the sounds, and also the scent orbs. So I worked to make those selections of the scent orbs. And it was really important to me when selecting those that I didn't select what you would expect out of the liquid, but something that would complement it. I can't remember what it is, but if you taste the rye, you should smell grapefruit and chamomile to complement what it is. So that was one project that I loved doing because it was, again, I'm a food scientist by trade and a whiskey blender, but going on to the other side of doing that was also fun. And so because we had did that, we took the idea after taking, multiple tours, seeing where we can improve things to create that yeast wall that you see.
Right.
So working with the group to get those petri dishes on there and really go for, okay, if it's this yeast, I was the one to work with them to tell them which yeast should have which scents, how we should go look for those scents, whether it's jackfruit, strawberry, banana. And I just really worked with the full process of the visitor center. One thing that I love everything about whiskey. I think as a blender, what allowed me to stay in my role so long was really getting to know consumers, getting to know what they want to experience. So I was fortunate to be able to work in all of those aspects of the visitor center. I loved it. I really did.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and of course, the best way we can judge is independently by ourselves, taste the whiskey that you blended. But people do want to know, they want to talk awards. That's important too. Maybe that's the way they discover that something might be good. And then they go and they buy a bottle and taste it for themselves. So tell us about some of the awards that the products that you created have won through the years.
Ooh, So I've had my hand in a lot of projects, I'll say. Some that might be public, some that might not. When it comes to San Francisco, I think that's where a lot of the awards sit. Any of those Dickel, Harper blends. A lot of people didn't know that I was responsible for the IW Harper portfolio. So IW Harper Base, which is the 4-year-old sold here. The 15-year-old was a blend that I managed for years. There were 2 that went to Asia, Dickel, Bottled and Bond, which ended up winning Whiskey of the Year, was something that I helped Nicole create from the blending aspect. So there have been a lot of different things. I don't talk about the awards a lot. I think Bullet Blender Select, the best award, it won #4 top 20 whiskeys in 2020 from Whiskey Advocate. And that was the brand's first ever time landing on that list. So that was really special for me.
Yeah. And Jim threw a question out there. I'll get to that in a second, Jim. I want to kind of cover a couple other things here before we move on to that. When we get into kind of some of the gritty lending questions, how all that works. As you leave Diageo, then, of course, you're now an independent contractor. You're working on your own. And so tell us a little bit about life after Diageo, some of the things that you've been doing and some of the exciting things that are happening.
Yeah, well, life after Diageo was a bumpy departure at first.
Yep.
For reasons that I've already stated. And after that, going through, just being honest, a very difficult time in fighting for a job that I really wanted, I decided to go out and do something very different. There were opportunities to stay in corporate. But I really always loved the idea of working with somebody small. My first job in liquor happened to be the world's largest beverage company. So I really wanted to see what craft would be like, how consulting would be, instead of being known as the bullet blender when I really wasn't the bullet blender. I was the US whiskey blender. How can I take this career and help out smaller craft distilleries? So through consulting, I've helped distilleries that are contract distilleries that are just making liquid for bulk purchasers, helping them do anything from warehouse planning, getting stuff up and running. Sensory is my main role, smelling and appraising distillate, giving feedback to see what distillery changes or cleaning anything that might have gone different. But I also help out some companies that have aged inventory. So maybe they've invested money in some barrels and are just looking for somebody to create a blend. So I work with them to appraise, give them notes on their distillate, and then create a formula. This December, I just released a blend. I decided that my first release since my bullet days would be a blend in my hometown, only 2 blocks from my grandmother's house. It's a distillery, it's the first distillery we've had. It's called Dread River. And so what I did was go there, work with the team, and source a Kentucky bourbon. So that was there was some pushback on that.
Right.
This Alabama girl wanting to release a whiskey in Alabama, but you telling me that Alabama whiskey isn't enough? But it wasn't that. I just really wanted to be able to bring a Kentucky bourbon home and release it in Birmingham and give them something really great. So we took some time, worked with a network, and purchased 6 barrels and released those barrels and sold them out pretty quickly. So I've had the great opportunity to do a lot in my consulting career in a short time. And it really excites me as I'm working on some other projects.
Very nice. So, it's a blending question, and Jim kind of threw this out at first, and it's a question that I had wanted to know about anyway. Just kind of the logistics of how it works. Take us through in your mind how you blend. I mean, you've got a series of barrels. You walk into a warehouse and they're like, these are the barrels. Are you kind of in your mind tasting through the first couple of barrels and be like, oh, this is what I think I could do? Or do you have to kind of taste them all? And then in your mind, this idea of blending this and that comes together and you think, this is how I can make? Or do you start getting the best of the bunch and then kind of blending them together and see what it tastes like and then trying to enhance it and make it better? Because I don't understand. I never really understand how that works.
So it depends. So your first step is going to be what I call a survey or a library. It's a sample collection. You want to collect a sample of everything that's of age. What of age could be 2 years, it could be 3, it could be whatever your personal brand's minimum is going to be. I would never blend to pick the best of the best. If you're building a brand, you're building it for longevity. You want to make sure that you save some of that good quality for later. Because if you dump it all now, as it continues to age, you don't know what's going to happen. So
Okay.
typically a blend starts off from pure math. And I know that sounds crazy, but it starts in Excel. So if you have an inventory download, you're really doing planning. You're looking at the dates of the barrel fill, the dump. If you know in your mind, okay, I want to release a 5-year-old or I want to release this average age, this is where I start. I start in Excel because I then have to calculate my angel share. My angel share is a percentage per year. And so for every year that I've aged that barrel, I have to then go calculate how much of that barrel might be left so that I can know what my max percentage is. So I can know, even though, so when I created Bullet Blender Select, I started completely bare. I just said, show me what you got. I don't care. I want to see what hasn't been used. And there was a barrel that I really liked and it was labeled 3X. But when I went to do the math to see, okay, how much of this is available, the max I could use it was 33%. So there was no way this barrel and this quality was going to be able to be 100% because the math, the final ABV, what you needed to make however many 9-liter cases didn't work out. So a lot of it is really the planning in Excel, but then it's the smelling and the tasting. You line up samples. I wouldn't do more than 50 a day. 50 a day can kind of be a lot. And so you go through, I line them up. I have my brown craft paper in front of me, and I'm smelling each individual sample at 20% alcohol. So I'm smelling it at 20% alcohol so that I can really understand what's in the liquid, pull out those notes and understand what I'm looking at. So I take the notes and then I do some grouping. So I group whether I see these few barrels as woody, are these slightly earthy, are these more caramel, do these have slight pencil shavings? So I group. And then I try to put the flavors together. But as I'm trying to put the flavors together, I have to also think of the math and make sure that works out. So it's
Right.
really just this constant battle of math and sensory until you can get to that final happy place.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you're going to be coming to our shop, the ABV Barrel Shop in Arnold, Missouri, which is a St. Louis suburb, on Saturday, July 29th. We've got 2 offerings at 1 o'clock p.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what to expect during that class.
Yeah, so we're going to eventually make our own blend, but I'm going to take you through what it is that I do in totality. So we're going to look at some distillate samples. We're going to look at some low rise, probably a little bit of wheat, see if I have some 95% rise. We're going to look at the distillate samples, smell, taste, and praise them, walk through the bourbon production, where those flavors are made, what that yeast is doing, how the distillation process is impacting it. And then after we go through the distillate, we'll go through the maturate. So I'm going to provide an age range for you. And I might throw in a curveball and give you an Excel sheet. We'll see if you want to do that. I've done this once before and the bartenders didn't like it. So I don't know. But so we'll go through the matrix and you'll probably get different ages, different mash bills. But then when I give you the task of creating your whiskey, you then have to define, do you want this to be, because blending isn't just bourbon. Do you want this to be a bourbon? If I give you a 99% corn whiskey and you want to put that in your blend, what does that then classify it if you choose a certain age? So we're going to really talk through how those different whiskey types and those different mash bills, and also the reality of, I might have 6 bottles available of 4-year-old, but only have 2 bottles available of a 12-year-old. How are we going to divvy that up? So I'm going to really do my best to challenge you to really think about the variety of inventory that a lot of distilleries have and the different types of blends that can be created with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a total hands-on demonstration. You're bringing some really good whiskey, right? I mean, there's
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm bringing some hidden gems.
Yes.
I think the oldest I've found is a 12-year-old. I do have this one old sample. I can't do it for blending, but I can let you taste it. I have an old 26-year-old sample
Oh, nice.
that
Yeah.
I can bring. So I'm excited about it because it allows you to ask me all the questions, for me to walk through it with you. If I give you a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, 12-year-old, you have the ages, but how does the mash bill change the flavor? And then
Right.
also, how does that whiskey type change the flavor? And really just walking through that. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah. And I mean, you get assistance from you in creating what is your ultimate blend, anybody who attends the class, and you'll walk away with a sample of it then, right? So
Yes.
they'll have some of that liquid that they can take with them and then share with friends and be like, oh, this is a little project I was working on. See what you think.
Yeah, you
They don't
can
have to say
save
it
it.
to them. Yeah, they can just like, this is just something I did. Yeah.
Tell them this is your infinity bottle that you create.
Yeah, see what you think. So, very, very cool stuff. A couple questions came in. Want to get to those, and then we will open it up for Q&A. And then at the end, I'll share a little bit if you are interested in signing up for the class, how you can do that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But Russ asked, do you feel that the difference between 20% alcohol and say 60% for 120 proof, I guess is what he's trying to say there, doesn't show a fair representation of the true spirit? Or is that a concern when you're testing at that low proof or ABV versus what it might be in the bottle, or why do you do that?
Yeah. When you're appraising at 20%, you're looking for faults. You're
Mm-hmm.
looking for things that cannot be detected easily by the consumer. When you're creating a final formula, while I've done my appraisals at 20%, my final formula is going to be at that final bottled ABV. So if I choose to have my blend at 50% ABV, that's what I blend to. And then I'm going to do my tasting notes at that bottling strength. But there are very different, there are differences in the two, but there are different usage. So
Right,
I am
right.
appraising at 20% because I want to be so objective about what I'm looking for. Versus at the bottling strength or at barrel strength, you're just sipping to enjoy.
And ultimately, you are tasting through what the consumer is going to taste. So, I mean, that's the key, right? So you're getting
Yes.
this is just to help early on in the process, and then you get there, and then you taste, and then you make sure. So I'm sure. James Jones wants to know: are these some of the barrels you're using for Dead River? I don't know if you can even say that or not. That's up to you. I don't have to say if you can't say. I don't know if you want to share that or
Oh, I
not.
can't. Are these some of the, what was the question?
Are these some of the barrels that are you using for Dead River? I guess some of the samples that you're bringing in. Are you using some of that stuff that you're available?
I haven't finalized what I'm gonna bring, which
Right.
is funny. Because I'm still going through. I have a lot of gems from honestly a lot of craft distilleries around that have brought some things to me. I have some liquids that I've used from Dread, but I can bring a bottle for the class. Steve, if you
Yeah.
want me to bring a bottle of that blend to taste for
Yes.
the
Oh, heck
class,
yeah. Heck yeah.
I can do that. But I don't think I would have enough to like
Okay.
play around with. But I'll definitely bring a bottle for the
Oh,
class to
we'd love it.
taste.
We'd love it for sure. Is that still available for sale? So, say someone gets it. Is there any left?
Yeah, so there's
Oh,
about
good.
80 bottles left online. And they've knocked them down to like $99, which is
Okay.
really good. So they're available at bigthirst.com. So Big Thirst is
Okay.
a
Good.
direct to consumer partner that I worked with for Dread River. I really love them because they focus on craft distilleries. And so they were available to get it online to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds very, very good. Um, how do you come up with the scents and flavors? Yeah, I mean, because you kind of walk through that. Um, our craft distilleries sound perfect for the ABV brand. Do you derive flavors from certain scents, food flavors, and color as an inspiration?
Mm. Yeah, I tend to do that because I'm a food scientist by trade. So when I was at Kettle, um, in Oregon, the way we would start with a new product, it would just be a vision board. It would be like as you were a kid, pulling out colors that spoke to you, pulling out pieces of magazines. That's really how we got inspired to create a chip flavor or something, by just starting there. When I'm blending, it's more of what restaurants I've been to lately. What are the menus? Are they more savory? Looking at cocktails, how are people mixing flavors? What local ingredients are they trying to use? And it helps me draw inspiration, but at the end of the day, I'm still stuck with whatever the whiskey has. I can just follow the trends of what my outside environment speaks to me.
Yeah. One of the questions that came in is, how long is the class? I mean, we left it open-ended. We put a lot of time between the two classes. So we have 1 o'clock is the first one, 5 o'clock is the second. So that allows us to have the appropriate amount of time to go through and do this, and we don't want to do a hard cutoff either of like 60 minutes or 90 minutes. It's kind of go through, and when we're done, right, Ebony? I mean,
I would say an hour at least.
Yeah.
An hour 15, because I do like to go and talk to individuals. You'll learn that I don't want to be standing in front of the room.
Right.
So I like to say like an hour 15, hour 30, so that we can get to know each other.
Right.
Minimum.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this group, they like to chat too. So I assume once everything is done and they've got all their blends, then they still have questions. So yeah.
Then we still have to have time for me to taste blends. I like to do that. I know some people might want to keep their blends, but it's also sometimes fun after you've made a blend.
We will, if you're willing to do that, we'll have some fun, and we may even award a bottle or something like that to whoever you tell us is the best. Because
I don't want to judge it. No. I don't want to judge it because I don't want anybody mad. But I like going through at the end of class and tasting through whatever we've made. It's usually fun.
Right. Okay. A bunch of questions are coming in here. Don't forget, you guys will get live Q&A. You can ask these yourself, but I'll go ahead and continue to ask as they're coming in here. Do's and don'ts of an infinity bottle. Do it if you like it. Don't if you don't.
Do it if you like it. Don't if you don't. You don't. I mean, you don't have.
There's no wrong answers there.
Blender. Yeah, just do what you want. But when I bring liquids that are, I'm gonna have what I have when it comes to the 12 and plus year old. So those are the rules when it comes to an infinity bottle. Use what you can and use it wisely. I'll say that, because you might think that you need 80% of a 12-year-old, but 20% of an 12-year-old might have more of an impact over an overall blend. So it's really, how you want those percentages of those ages to play in your final formula.
Yeah. Are you still working with Marianne Eaves on Eaves Blind? And if so, what's that process like?
No. So Marianne decided to pivot and stop Eaves Blind for the year. She has another project she's working on. So the process, I can tell you what it was like for it. It was working with a lot of different craft distilleries, really just making connections, seeing the liquid, tasting, appraising to see what we wanted to offer. But very early in the program, she decided to cancel it. So I'm no longer working on that.
Gotcha. We had a local one that was involved in that too, Stumpy Spirit. So I don't know if you were involved in them at all, but just throw that out there. They were.
I do like the program. I think, any way you can, and that's a challenge that I am making to myself. As I go out and do more private tastings, I end up just getting whatever's at the store, but it would be nice to be able to use those opportunities to highlight craft distilleries more. So I really like the program. I hope she's able to bring it back.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the challenges of female ambassadors?
What was the question?
This came in from Melody, and she wants to know, what are your thoughts on the challenges of female ambassadors?
Female ambassadors, I'm not sure. Like being
ambassadors, ambassadors. So like an ambassador.
Female ambassadors, brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
I think they do great. I don't understand. Sorry, I'm kind of tricked on the question. Female ambassadors have been around for a long time. It depends on which category you're speaking to. If we're speaking directly to whiskey, there's definitely been a lot more women that are ambassadors now. But so I appreciate it. Women are scientifically proven to be able to smell better, according to scientists.
Yep.
So it's really good to see that there are a lot of women out there. But yeah, they've always been around. It's just nice to see them get the shine now.
Yeah. Question for you. Other than what you've helped create, what are some of the whiskeys that you're loving right now?
Ooh. So my go-to is Wild Turkey 101.
Okay.
And
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. That's a classic, right?
no, that's like my go-to, a good Wild Turkey 101 Manhattan. But I've been like, it's summertime, so I'm honestly on a tequila kick right now. We have local bars who have a lot of different, I'm a cocktail person. I'm not a sit at home. I try to be really objective when it comes to whiskey. I find it sometimes hard to go out and just enjoy a bourbon. So I typically go out, enjoy cocktails, and leave the whiskey to work.
Yeah. Yeah. So just one more on the class. So again, it's Saturday, July 29th. We've got two sessions we're offering, 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock. We are in the St. Louis suburb of Arnold, Missouri. You can sign up online over at abvbarrelshop.com. We under classes and events. Of course, the event is on Eventbrite, so you can search that as well. I will send out an email via the Zoom email function, and we've got one going out tonight, and then we'll send another one that have a link to the video on there as well. On that note, I'd like to open it up to you guys. If you guys have questions, you can unmute yourselves now and feel free to ask, and we'll go through any questions you have for Ebony.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Ebony. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So my name is Kelsey. I actually work at Kings County Distillery. So I'm just interested in what do you do to kind of like rinse your palate, keep it clean, fresh, because you're doing a lot of tastings throughout the day.
Yeah. It's a restricted eating process. You know, if I am working consistently, I am eating the same thing in the morning and pretty much lunch. When I was working at Bullet, my kind of go-to was boiled eggs and oranges. I would typically try to stay light at lunch. You don't really do anything. I think so I know you asked me what to do to cleanse your palate, but it's important that you kind of monitor it throughout the day. So what you eat in the morning, if you have some coffee, making sure you have water throughout the day. If you eat at lunch, I would do like cheese or yogurt, a sandwich, something light. If I were ever going to go out for work and eat, for a celebration, I wouldn't do any work afterwards because it's really kind of hard to get some of those flavors out. So it's really about just really planning your day. If you're going to do sensory, okay, from 8 to 10, I can eat whatever, but then 10 to 2, I'm going to try to restrict myself so that I can really just focus on samples, because you're really making important business decisions based on your smell and your taste. So it's just important to keep it clean.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. What else do you guys want to know? Any questions out there in the audience? Anybody? No? Nothing going on. Okay. Well, we look forward to.
I've got one, Steve. I'm sorry.
All right, Jim, go ahead.
It took me a minute to find the unmute button. So,
okay.
Who would it be your dream to work with?
Ooh. I don't know. I really still want to work with Beam and Freddie on something. Like, he's the first person that comes to mind because I just really think we could do something cool. Yeah, he's the first person when it comes to bourbon, but definitely like, what are some wineries or something that I could work with on a finish? That's also what comes to my mind. Like, what other companies outside of another bourbon? When I think bourbon, definitely like the Beam, Freddie, and their approach on innovation is definitely one I would say.
Yeah. A couple of questions also came in via the chat function there. Any single barrel offerings you might be involved in? And again, you certainly worked with Dead River, but you're not necessarily affiliated with them. You're kind of still a free agent. You can work with whoever. So will there be any sort of single barrels or something coming along the lines of a barrel proof offering down the road?
I did have a friend, if you see me on Instagram, that barrel in that ugly pink turtleneck offered that I can have that barrel, and it's a rye barrel that I really fell in love with when I went to visit. So I'm thinking about releasing that. I don't know when, I don't know under what label, but it's about 7 years old right now.
Okay.
So I would really like to get that one out. That's the one. That barrel in that picture is what I'm hoping to get out. It's a really good, of course, it comes from MGP, so 95% rye. But it's a really good liquid that he purchased years ago. And when I saw the barrel, it just had these little funky marks to it. The way some of the leaks, you could tell from the outside that it was going to be a rich barrel. So I fell in love with that one.
Well, and James has a good idea. When you're ready to do that, that should be an ABV Barrel Shop exclusive.
It should be. I will keep you.
Hey, Steve.
Keep us in
Steve,
mind. Yeah.
Steve, you know I'm a company man, so I'm always going to have your back, brother.
I appreciate that, buddy. I appreciate that. So yeah, we'll be sure to hold back some bottles for you for that suggestion, if there's especially that comes to fruition. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on timing. I have it, but I don't know when.
Okay.
Thinking.
A question from Marie came in asking for suggestions for women looking to get into the business, especially late in the game, she says. So she feels like, I guess later in her career is what she means by late in the game, I guess. So any
Yeah, I think right now is a really good opportunity because there's organizations like Bourbon Women. I think that would be a good place to start, is joining that organization. I'm a member, but I'm not as active as I should be. Eulalie is much more active than I am. Getting in contact with her about some of the events we're doing, and just getting that education, getting to know some of the people that are involved in that group. It's a really amazing group of women that focus on education, community service, getting involved. And through that group, I guarantee you're going to meet a lot of different distilleries and be able to make connections and find some of those jobs. But I think starting with Bourbon Women would be really, really good, because then you can say, okay, I can get to know the industry. What part of it do I like? Is it going to be manufacturing? Is it going to be ambassadorship? Is it going to be marketing? When you get in that network, you can really figure out how you want to emerge yourself in the industry. But I definitely say start with Bourbon Women, because I understand where you're coming from, being older in your career. Bourbon Women is going to really make you feel like you're evil level playing field. Like, it's just women who want to get together and have the same ambition no matter where you are in your career.
Yep. And there's the website there, and of course they do have a presence in St. Louis. Marie is here locally in St. Louis around us, and they are here as well. There's a chapter that's active here, so and it helps you build a network. I mean, that's important. That's how you're going to get a gig in the industry, is building your own personal network. So that'll certainly help out.
Absolutely. That's what's allowed me to keep my career, is that network and being able to get to know the individual distillers and makers at some of these distilleries.
Yeah. Eboni, and we certainly appreciate you being part of this, and people want to follow along. So is there anything that you want to share, website, social media, anything that'll help them out, keeping track of what you have going on? Maybe they can jump in on it when they get an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, so I am not at all active on social, I will admit. I try, but whenever I am getting ready to announce a project or anything, an article, it's usually on Instagram, and it's I'll put it in the chat. But I'm gonna do better. I'm headed to. So before I do the class, you guys are gonna have to bear with me. I'll be in New Orleans for the week for Tales of the Cocktail. Then I'm flying to you guys the next day for the class. So yeah. I might be a little, I don't want to say hungover, but yeah, a little hungover. But you'll be able to see all my festivities there. But yeah, I'll be in New Orleans that full week right before flying to you guys on Saturday.
Okay. Major in whiskey. All right. Any projects as we're wrapping it up? Anything that we should be on the lookout? Things that you could talk about. Again, I don't want to.
Yeah, I
I
haven't really cleared it with the client, but I do have a client that we're planning to release something before the end of the year.
Okay.
I can definitely say that. So
All right.
I don't, a fall release. I'll send them an email to see how loosely we can start talking about it. But I definitely have something coming out with a client this year.
Well, that is exciting. Ebony, thank you so much for not only, being willing to come to our store, but to do this event to help people get to know you a little bit better. I can't say thank you enough. This was just awesome.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. I can't wait to
Round of
come and meet you in
applause, yes,
person.
for Ebony. We look forward to seeing you in person. That's going to be fun, and I know you are. Again, you stopped in the middle of a hair appointment, so I appreciate you doing that to make sure that we got this event in the books, and I thank you for that, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Okay.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I will stick around if you guys have any questions for me. I know we need to let Ebony go so she can finish that appointment, but I'll stick around if you have any questions. Thanks, guys. Turning off the recorder.
Thank you, Ebony.